Welcome back to Business Line. On the sidelines of Rotary Managed 2009 recently, Rajiv Lula caught up with the coach, and guess who he coaches?
So now we are joined by Mr. R.R. Nair. He is an organizational development consultant and a CEO coach. Welcome, Mr. Nair.
Thank you, Rajiv.
So the first question I want to ask you is, since you are a CEO coach, tell me what's leadership?
Well, fundamentally leadership is essentially a process to take an organization to its desired goals and objectives. And an effective leader is someone who sets certain vision of the future, a desired sort of a outlook of the future of the organization. And the funny thing about leadership is that you can't have leadership without having followership. So how do you actually energize, enable your entire team willingly and enthusiastically to follow the steps of the leader? That's one dimension. Therefore, it seems to me that effective leadership is all about dealing with the vision of the future, setting primary agenda for achieving the vision, and mobilizing commitment of people. And in that process, the leader also is an exemplar of his or her personal values and beliefs. The so-called leadership is something which is only restricted at the CEO level. I'm a strong believer of distributed leadership. At the end of it, the one who is actually supervising a team of salesmen or a team of workmen or a team of, say, techies on a project, at the end of it, he or she is also a leader in the truest sense. So to that extent, if an organization has to fulfill its vision and dream and purpose, it's important to have a collection of leaders at all levels. And the leader's task as a CEO leader is one of also making sure that you have a robust leadership pipeline, identifying high quality performance, making sure that you also spot talent for potential, and how do you harness both performance and potential so that you groom them to leadership role. So in a way, there is a sort of a template through which a young guy who comes in as a sales supervisor becomes a sales manager, moves up to the next level. And also, as he moves up in his career and in his own development, it's important also to acquire breadth of experience, because at the leadership role, as you move up the ladder, you're actually looking at strategy. And strategy is not just functional strategy or domain knowledge and expertise, it's actually breadth and depth. So that, I think, is the way I would really look at it, that values are important, vision of the future is important, it's all about performance and effectiveness, and it is not concentrated only at the CEO level. So in a CEO coach scenario, you are really concerned about his direct reports leadership, and then direct reports plus one's leadership. And sometimes we go down and say, hey, if there is an issue at the marketplace, what about the leadership at the marketplace? Right. You can't tackle the leadership issue at the top without addressing the leadership issue at the front end.
I also wanted to ask you about, how do you measure some of this progress? Do you see us moving in that direction? And how do we measure our progress?
This is aided by a whole set of psychometric tools which are available, which can assess different facets of leadership and leadership styles and leadership effectiveness. Leadership effectiveness is also measured through the 360-degree process. We find more and more corporates and enlightened ones are saying that, look, leadership has to be viewed in the context of multiple perceptions about one's effectiveness. So I think 360 as a very effective tool is something which is now being widely used. And probably lastly, at the end of it, effective leadership must in fact demonstrate effective performance.
Yes.
So large company systems are really looking at P&L responsibility being pushed down to as lowest a level as possible. So that in the distributed leadership concept that I talked about, at all levels you can actually sort of differentiate between a successful leader who is able to produce superior results versus someone who is not so successful. So you don't have to test it out only at the CEO level. Maybe at the front end, it is possible for it to assess in terms of performance. And I think we have come a long way. And I would really say that probably more work is required to be done in the area of measurement of leadership effectiveness.
Mr. Nair, another topic that's interesting in leadership is mentor-mentee relationships. Do you see that dynamic kind of developing in the industry and in the government sector?
I think until recently, maybe until about 10, 15 years ago, having a coach or a mentor in a larger sense, because you also address, you really find that if you are asked to adopt a mentor, it was seen as something which is an unacceptable suggestion. Because something is wrong with me, why the hell somebody should suggest that I need to have a mentor? I think we have come a long way. Today there is greater level of acceptance of mentor and mentoring. And if you were to ask whether in government and in the public sector establishments you find this is prevalent, because I think your question was directly linked to, I find in the Indian School of Business there are more and more large public sector institutions are coming in, using 360-degree as a basis for enhancing leadership effectiveness of their top managers. And mentoring is now getting adopted in public sector enterprises, which I think is a good. In the private sector, especially the multinationals and the large Indian houses, there is greater level of acceptance. And this is not driven by just the fad of having a coach or a mentor as a luxury, not at all. But fundamentally, it is a business requirement. As the business grows, you need a robust pipeline of future leaders. And if you find there is a shortfall, typically, for example, look at an organization where the average age of top managers is about 55, and if their retirement age is at 58, you have a situation where if you have not grown leadership from within, you need to accelerate them. You need to actually profile them around a set of leadership competencies. What are the key differentiators in terms of leadership effectiveness? And then you need to have the very senior people to play the role of mentors. So it is not necessary that you need to have people from outside coming in as mentors. But then those senior people need to understand the mentor-mentee relationship. What are the dynamics of that relationship? How do you help? Because essentially this whole process of mentoring, coaching is a helping process. But I find there is a greater inclination for them to really come out and say, hey, I don't know very much about mentoring, but I think if there is something that I need to learn, I'm willing. And I think that sort of positive attitude is something which is extremely helpful.
Lots of deep insights there, and definitely, personally, I learned a whole lot. I'm sure so did our audience. Thank you, Mr. Nair, for being in Chennai, for joining us on our channel today. Pranav, take us away.
Thanks, Rajiv. And now we go across to meet a young actor who knows who to emulate when it comes to his financial planning.
Young Jiva might be concentrating on just being a good actor right now, but he certainly intends following in his father's footsteps. And if Super Good Films is an indication of his father's wise financial planning, Jiva looks like he's on the right track.
Money is something very important in life, and emotions, everything comes after money, I feel so at this point of time, because the world has become so mechanical and so money-minded too. So today I'm here at my studios for sure, for building up this kind of a studio and for building up my own career and for giving life to a lot of people. So money is very important. It's very important because I've been always following my dad's steps, and he's been very calculative towards his life, and me, for being an actor, to promote his son, he could have done a lot of stuff, but still he was very calculative at that point of time. He could have casted a big director or a big music director at that point of time, but he had a lot of money, but still there's some kind of a limit for anything, so you try to put something in the well and everything goes, so nothing is behind. So he's been very calculative, so he's been building his career and my career and my brother's career and everybody's career in a very calculative way, like step by step. So it's been like that. I invest in a lot of stuff, especially shares and sometimes gold, and sometimes for a film person, I come from the film fraternity, so for sure today this studio is like fully I invest on my studios and a lot of technical aspects. Future does a lot of stuff, probably cameras and a lot of stuff.
Always diversify your investments to keep it safe. That's all we have on Business Line this week. But do join us next week for your weekly business update. Do send us your comments on feedback at ndtv-hindu.com. Goodbye for now.